All right, so I'll just kind of continue. Like I said, I was so religious because again, because I saw myself as Jewish, and I didn't understand my grandpa's teachings. I didn't understand Orthodox Judaism and religion, and I always saw Jews as Marxists and Jews as more black, and so I wanted to promote my, I saw myself as like mix, like I'm more black, and I wanted to promote that, and I wanted to make white people feel bad for being white, and promote race mixing, because I saw Jews as more black, and I saw white people as the biggest threat to the Jews, and I always saw religion as white supremacy and spirituality as white supremacy, and people who are spiritual and religious as secretly white supremacists and wanting to maintain the status quo. And I was a Darwinist, so like I said, when I looked at the Ten Commandments, I'd be like, no, that people want to say, oh, that came from God, but I'll be like, no, it didn't come from God. What it came from is in primitive societies, they recognized if you prohibit adultery, that helped to maintain order within the society. Because if you allow adultery and adultery runs rampant, there's going to be chaos. So it was automatic that people already distinguished that adultery was not beneficial. So they made laws saying no adultery, and then they said, oh, this is 10 commandments that came from God. And that maintained the status quo, and it maintained harmony within the society, which is good for the society's genes and the members of the society's genes. And that's what people ultimately want. They want lack of chaos and order so that there's a benefit for their genes to thrive, for their tribal genes, for their genes and the genes of their tribe, which they share. So, but I wanted to undermine religion, and I basically wanted to ultimately say, yeah, so let's just get, the main thing is everything is about Darwinism. So if we just get everybody to mix and we dissolve borders, and, the reason why there's stratification in society is because, certain families get power because, they want to maintain power within their genetic lines, and certain races. And, if you look at the Aztecs, it was the nobility, and the nobility were almost a different race than the lower class because they intermixed with they didn't intermix, and they only interbred with each other. And that's where, the stratification came from. And that's why they would, kill so many people, because so they can maintain their power. And by doing the sacrifices of the people, they said it came from God. They said that God told them to do sacrifices, but no, it was really just Darwinism. And really the nobility was just sacrificing the people and throwing them off so that they could, so that they can give their people protein, but so they can do cannibalism, but also so that it would promote fear within the society to maintain the status quo and maintain their power within their genetic lines, because they were like a separate species, because they only interbred with each other. And so they were almost like a separate, the nobility were almost a separate species than the commoners. And really, if you just look at everything, it's just, they will say it's because God told us to do it, but no, they say it was God, but that's just to maintain the status quo. So the only way to overcome our Darwinian tendencies is for us all, just dissolve borders. Let's all mix. All the races mix. And that's why I liked Islam so much, because I thought that Islam would destroy Christianity, which maintained division between the Christians and the Muslims, the whites and the dark people. And I wanted all the races to mix. And once we dissolve borders and get all races mixed, then religion will dissolve, and it will be a utopia. That's what I wanted. So, but so that was the way I saw it. And like I said, I went to this Korean cult, and I thought that I was trying to get ideas that kind of supported my hypothesis. So like one of them was that Elijah didn't really multiply the bread, because my grandpa would say, yeah, Elijah recognized everything as energy so he could multiply bread. But I was like, no, according to this story, according to the Korean cult, what happened was Elijah went to the idols, and the people used to give bread to the idols, and they say that the ravens fed Elijah. But what that meant, the Korean cult said, was the people stopped giving their food to the idols and to the ravens, so they stopped wasting their food. So then their food multiplied. So the idea was, I thought, okay, it was Marxism. They stopped wasting their food on religion, and they became Marxists, and they started sharing their food, and everybody, and then they became abundant. So really, the answer to everything is Marxism. Once we were Marxists and we dissolve borders and we all intermix and we all share our food, and the whites give, the have-nots give to the haves give to the have-nots, and the whites give to the blacks. And really, I wanted race mixing and to destroy the white race. But once we do this, then there's going to be abundance for everybody. That's what I wanted to believe. And I thought that the story of Elijah was a metaphor of that. But really, now I understand, okay, they stopped worshiping idols. My grandpa, if you want to look at it in the transpersonal perspective, my grandpa would say, okay, they stopped worshiping idols. And even when they destroy Rome, that's destroying the idols. When they destroy the Greek Empire, that's destroying the idols. The destroying of the idols could represent, I'm trying to look at it through the transpersonal perspective of my grandpa. It could represent the destruction of the illusion that there are separate things into the flow. And now the flow isn't necessarily Marxism. The flow, is pure awareness in receptivity to truth in the optimal mode of being, and a mode of being which is not. I was in the Darwinian mode of being, a Marxist mode of being, materialist, and I thought that the materialist Marxists could bring about benefits if everyone just mixes and we dissolve the family, because the family is also negative, because the family creates division, and it's based around Darwinism. And okay, but my grandpa would say, if you're in the flow and you stop worshiping idols, and idols is the illusion that there are separate things, but you transcend the self and you transcend the illusion of separation, and you're in the flow, you're in oneness consciousness, then there's abundance. Now I kind of understand my grandpa's teaching, but back then I didn't like my grandpa's teachings because I was anti-white, and I was, as my grandpa would say, I was in dualistic software, but I didn't recognize it. I didn't see myself as one. I saw myself as a Jew, a separate being who wanted to race mix the white people to defeat the white people. I was in predator-prey dualistic software, but I didn't know that. And my grandpa didn't know that either, because I didn't explicitly say it, but I would kind of hint at it with my ideas like, oh, it's Marxism. Oh, yeah, race mixing would be best. It would stop the, oh, there is no such thing as race. Oh, there is, IQ is... IQ is basically IQ is not important because IQ is white supremacist, and Jordan Peterson's a white supremacist and he thinks IQ is important, but really that's just a white supremacist idea, and IQ is a social construction, and it's culturally biased toward white people because white people made it, blah blah blah. So really my agenda was anti-white, but I tried to garb it under compassion. Oh, I'm just compassionate and I just love the people of color, and I basically tried to influence the white women to want to be with black guys and show that I'm, look at me, I kind of have an afro, and I can rap really good, and I play basketball, and if you white women would mix with the black guys, then you can have children who are good basketball players and rappers, and we blah, blah, blah. That's what I wanted to do, subtly. So it's kind of crazy, but that's the way I was a Satanist. Now I know I was a Satanist, but at the time, like I said, I didn't think I was a Satanist. I thought the Bible was Marxist. And I didn't realize that Satan, in Hindu mythology, Satan, Shukracharya, was a Shiva worshiper, destruction worshiper, who wanted the Dravidians to take over the Aryans, who wanted the dark races to defeat the white races. I didn't realize that I was a Satanist. I thought I was a good guy. But I was a materialist like the Satanists, and I didn't see things through my grandpa's metapsychiatry lens. But I'll get more to that later. But so now I'll kind of teach what my grandpa was teaching me. So, like, one of the things that my grandpa taught was, okay, the story of when Jesus heals the Canaanite woman's daughter. What happened is the Canaanite woman is begging Jesus, right? And then Jesus is like, he tells her, I do not give bread to the dogs or whatever. And she says, even the dog will accept scraps. And then so my grandpa said that, at first she was pleading and desperate, and she was trying to make things happen, right? She wasn't in the flow. She was pleading and desperate. My grandpa would say you're either pleading and desperate, pushy and demanding, or you're, persistent and determined. And persistent and determined is the right way to be, and that's the flow. But this woman was pushy, demanding, and trying to get Jesus to heal her, but she needed to transcend the self to the flow. And then when she transcended the self to the flow and she humbled herself and said, even I will accept the crumbs, that's when her daughter is healed, because there's a connection between the mother and the daughter, and that a one energy connection, everything is one. So then the daughter was healed. Now, I didn't want to see it that way. I wanted to, again, see everything as Darwinian. And I was like, well, Jesus didn't want to heal her because she was a Canaanite and there are different genes, and really that was just an allegory of the destruction of the Canaanite Jericho system. In the stories of Jesus, that was just a metaphor of the destruction of Canaan, because Jesus crosses the sea, like the Israelites cross the sea, and then they go to the Canaanites, and then I was one who discovered this. I don't know if anybody else has seen this, and then according to Finkelstein, when they helped the Canaanite prostitute, which is metaphorical of Jesus helping this woman, the prostitute helped to destroy Canaan, and that represents a Marxist revolution within Canaan. And really, I wanted to believe that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were myths, that they never existed. And that's what Finkelstein kind of taught. Finkelstein said, that those stories are made up and the Jews just came from Canaan and they never went to Egypt. But that's what I wanted to believe, because I wanted to destroy religion, because I thought that religion maintained the status quo, and I was a Marxist, and I wanted race mixing, and I wanted to destroy the white race. But, my grandpa thought that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were real characters. He said that they might have been legendary, but they were real people. But I didn't want to believe that. I wanted to destroy religion because I thought religion created division, and I wanted race mixing. I wanted to destroy the white race. So, I wanted to be like, yeah, Jesus, he was actually racist, and that makes sense because it's Darwinism, and that was really just an allegory of the Marxist revolution. So really the Bible's Marxist, so we should all just be Marxists. And no, I didn't understand my grandpa's teachings of the flow. So, I didn't want to, my grandpa's teaching was very spiritual. Like, Jesus, he caused a transition, a shift in that woman's consciousness, and that healed the daughter because they're connected. And that's a very spiritual way of looking at it. But I hated spirituality. I thought that spirituality maintained the status quo, maintained white supremacy. I didn't even like the ideas of aliens because I thought it was too spiritual. I like the mundane, the material, and I wanted to uproot spirituality because I saw it as maintaining the white race and the status quo. So I wanted to believe, no, that was just an allegory of the destruction of the Canaanite system through Marxist revolutions, and the Bible's really Marxist, and I wanted to just destroy the Bible because I saw the Bible as something that preserves society. And I was a Shiva worshiper, a destruction worshiper. And I was not a Vishnu worshiper, a preservation worshiper. And, Vishnu's on the side of the Aryans, and I was anti-Aryan. So, and the other examples would be like my grandpa taught, like in Alcoholics Anonymous, the way that people are healed is they submit to a higher power. And what my grandpa says is, again, this is the thing I liked about my grandpa was he seemed to be anti-religious because he would say there is no separate God. So I'm like, okay, that's good. I like that. It's energy. Okay, it's energy. But my grandpa would say, by submitting to a higher power, you let go of yourself. And the self is the problem. The self is what makes you become an alcoholic. I guess through the way I can see it is like one reason why people become alcoholics is because like it gives them an excuse for why they suck. And they can say, oh, I suck. It's because I'm an alcoholic. And then they become addicted to it. Or, maybe there is like a chemical aspect of it, but again, that's a part of the self, that's a part of the body, whatever. But my grandpa would say by transcending the body, by transcending the self, by submitting to a higher power, you can transform your energy system, right? And you can be healed of alcoholism. But you need to let go of the self, transcend the self, because the self is the problem, making things happen, the self. So like other example would be like even like healings, my grandpa would say like, if someone heals you, it's not just a placebo effect. It's because you believe it and you let go. And then when you let go, it causes a shift in your energy. But again, I see all this energy talk as spiritual and religious, and I didn't like it. Because I thought spirituality maintained the white race. So, I wanted to see things, it's just genetics, and it's because I want to believe in Darwinism, and, because again, the way I think I saw it is then you have to take responsibility. And I saw myself as Jewish, and I saw Jews as victims, and I hated victim blamers. And if you could say like, oh, you became sick because of you're not in the flow, then that's victim blaming, I thought. And I wanted to be like, no, we're just victims of Darwinism, and we have no control over that. And, it's just all Darwinism. And I didn't want to take responsibility for upgrading my software and seeing things through a spiritual lens, a oneness lens. But again, like I said, I wanted to see the good as bad and the bad as good. So I misappropriated my grandpa's teachings because my grandpa would say that, nonconformity could be closer to the flow. So for instance, there was Korah's rebellion. Now, according to the Orthodox Jews, Korah's rebellion represented a Marxist revolution against Moses, where they were like, hey, why is Moses a leader? Aren't we all one? Aren't we all equal? No, according to my grandpa, we're not all equal. People are different, but we're all one in that we're all, it's like one body. It's all one energy event, but there is differences. And if you're in the flow, you can discern those differences, right? But, and discern them transparently, not through contamination of the ego. But according to the Orthodox rabbis, the Korah's rebellion, they're like, we're all equal. We should rebel against Moses, but then they're all killed. Now, they don't believe in God, right? They don't believe in God. So, but again, I wanted to be like, oh, the Korah's rebellion was actually good. They didn't believe in, not believing is good because belief is not the flow. Because if you believe, you're attached. According to my grandpa, you're attached, but when you're in the flow, you have no attachments and you're open to inspiration. So I was like, and I think that I found something, and I have to look through the Bible again, that the people in Korah's rebellion ended up surviving. And you see that a lot where like even the rebellion against the rebellion in the desert when Moses puts up the snake. Again, they didn't believe, so they have to die. When you don't believe, you have to die. Belief is the second quadrant, and belief is life. Knowledge is a fourth quadrant, and that is death. And non-belief is knowledge. So I was like, so they have to die because they don't believe. But I was like, but then you put up the snake, which represents death. They have to kill a snake, and that's death, and that's knowledge. That's the fourth quadrant, and that saves them. So by not believing, they end up gaining knowledge. They have to sacrifice a snake, which would be like sacrificing your attachments, and then they get knowledge, knowing. So I was like, okay, so not believing is actually good, and it brings them to knowing. So if you look at like the Romans, they believe, but they end up being destroyed. But then the Jews who don't believe, they get the blood of Jesus on them because they say, put the blood on us. So that's the death, the knowing. They even give Jesus the wine, which is representative of knowledge in the Bible, because the fruit of knowledge, knowing. So they give them the wine, and then they're saved by Jesus being on the cross, the death, the sacrifice. And I was like, yeah, but so the Gentiles are killed, but because they believe, but the Jews who don't believe, they're saved because belief is actually not the flow. So I wanted to subvert everything and make being bad good and good bad, and make the Jews the good guys. The Jews are the fourth quadrant NTs who don't believe. That's what I wanted to believe, because I want to subvert everything and destroy the white race and say the Christians are actually bad, but really I wanted to destroy Christianity and say, yeah, belief is not the flow, because you cannot actually know, you cannot believe in God, because God is something you cannot believe in. Because if you believe it, that is something that is restricted, and God is beyond any capacity of belief. So you have to know. So yes, the Jews are going to get killed because they don't believe, but then they end up knowing and they're saved. But the Gentiles who believe, the white people who believe, they believe and they're good, but they're not actually in the flow. So I wanted to subvert everything, because ultimately I wanted to destroy the white race. So it's kind of like Gnostic, but not. Like, it was very subtle what I was trying to do. So, but again, so the Korah's rebellion was Marxist, but I was like, yeah, well, apparently that's supposed to be bad, but that's actually good. Marxism is good. Again, my grandpa would say there is no formula for the flow, and not believing can be beneficial, but also, being nonconformist is not necessarily the flow either. But my point is, I had an agenda, and I didn't want to look at my grandpa's spiritual teachings, like his ideas of healing and stuff, and that everything is energy, and that because I asked my grandpa, well, how do you explain the lion who kills the other lion's cubs? Isn't that Darwinism? Because they don't share his genes, so he kills them. But my grandpa say, no, it's the anti-entropic rewarding function. The other lion did not have as much synergy, so he died, and then you kill the cubs of the one with less synergy. And this is pointing toward the flow, which is synergy. But I didn't like the idea of synergy. But my grandpa would say, so you move more progressively towards synergy, and there's an evolution. You start off with, you get progressively less material as you get up to the human, right? It starts off with animals with skeleton that are just like shells, and then the shells go to the skeletons, and then the skeleton, and they're more, like the dinosaurs, and then it evolves to the human who's not very physical, and it ultimately evolves to the flow, which is the ultimate protection, and science and inquiry and understanding and intuition and inspiration. So that's what my grandpa's trying to teach me. He's trying to teach me the more spiritual lens. Everything is one, anti-entropic rewarding function, synergy, moving towards synergy, working, transcending the self. But I didn't want to see it that way, because again, I was like, working hard, and that's just white supremacist. And I wanted Marxist revolutions. I wanted to destroy the white race. So, and in my mind, I'm like, no, it's all just Darwinian manipulations. And yeah, of course, my grandpa was a white guy, wants people to work hard so we can maintain the society that's white supremacist and maintain power in the white society. And I want to see things through the Darwinian lens. And again, my grandpa was trying to make me work and stuff, but I was like, no, I discovered the theory of everything, But, but I'll get to how I changed, how I started to understand my subconscious and my the destructiveness of my mode of seeing things, and my anti-whiteness and my dualistic software in the death of my daughter. So I'll get to that.